It's always about him. One reason I want Kamala Harris is it will be about you. Number two, Kamala Harris wants to go forward, not backward. She doesn't want to waste any time talking about all this stuff that we can get a lot of laughs about. Look at inflation in the economy. I know a little something about this. I did have that job for 8 years, and we had the longest peacetime expansion in history. We had the first balanced budget in 30 years, the first three surpluses in a row in 70 years. I was pretty tight with the dollar. We paid $600 billion down on the national debt. But you got to know when to invest, when to save, and you can't pretend that all spending is the same. If you look at the candidates' plans, the Trump plan is more than twice as expensive as the Harris plan, and it will help way less than half the people that the Harris-Walz plan will help, because their plan goes mostly to help already wealthy people and big corporations who both don't need it and won't necessarily invest it in what does work, which is growing the middle class and giving poor folks a chance to work their way into it. So why aren't we voting for the Democrats? Well, a lot of people say, well, there's been too much inflation. That's right. When COVID happened and the economy of the world shut down, it broke the supply chains. And when the supply chains are broken, then the demand for goods for a while is much higher than the available supply. When the demand's here and the supply's here, the price forces a raise. It happened everywhere in the world. Now what happened? The administration, the President Biden and all of his economic team and Vice President Harris, they've been trying to get the inflation rate down, and it's been going down for 3 years, and finally the Federal Reserve has lowered interest rates, which is going to drive it down more. So there's still some residual inflation that we all have questions about, especially in food prices, in fuel prices. Now, here's how that works. If you look at the grocery business nationwide, there are still quite a large number of independent grocery stores, especially in smaller places, but they have to buy from a relatively limited number of suppliers. And then there's the problem of concentration in larger places of huge grocery stores with massive numbers of customers having a big share of the market. They often have what sounds like a low profit margin, 3 or 4%. But if you've got millions of customers, you can make a ton of money with that kind of profit margin. And the difference of 1% might be enormous, and all the burden of that 1% might come off people buying meager groceries every week to stay alive. That's why most states have anti-price gouging laws. But we always left it to the states before. And the grocery business has been changing before our very eyes and getting more and more concentrated. And that's why Kamala Harris became the first presidential candidate ever to say we need a national price gouging law. And Bob Casey, the senator from Pennsylvania, has already introduced one. You have them in blue states and red. We might be able to get a big bipartisan vote for this. But we won't get it if they don't get it in the Congress. and we don't have a president standing behind it. And once the Justice Department has the power to look into these things, prices may start to drop a little bit. Might not ever have to file a lawsuit, because that's the way the world works. If you think you're free to do whatever you want, it's different than if you have to think about whether the law will come down on you. So this is just one example. But she's in this looking for a practical solution to a big problem. For people who are doing their best to run independent grocery stores, and people doing their best to find food for their families at reasonable prices at stores of any size. And so I hope you'll think about that. I hope you'll talk to your neighbors about that. We just started this early voting. It's not too late to talk to people. But it's crazy I think, unfair. I'll back off of crazy. They use that word too much. It's unfair to pretend that we could have been the only country in the world that would have escaped this inflation problem. And she's actually trying to do something about it. So that's the first thing. Second thing is she'll help working families by another big increase in the earned income tax credit, up to $3,600 a year. And I know this will work.